Now to the rest of our show. Tonight we're going to take a deep dive into dysfunction. Yep, we're going to share lots of information from a new audit into the Joint Office of Homeless Services. It is not a pretty picture, but it's one that we all do need to see clearly, and that's why it's our big story tonight. Now, in theory, having one office that combines money from the city and county and coordinates work on the homeless problem, well, you know, that kind of makes sense. But today we got a disturbing look at the reality of that office, and it's pretty ugly. It came in the form of an audit by Multnomah County. I have my take on this, but first, let's hear from investigative reporter Evan Watson, who read the full report and talked with the auditor.
In many ways, the Joint Office of Homeless Services works as a contract manager. It collects money and gets it to homeless service providers that do the work across the Portland area. But if you ask those providers, and look, the Multnomah County auditor did, that process needs work. Homeless service providers told the auditor that the Joint Office has been a confusing and chaotic organization, saying it needs to improve managing contracts and communicating. Sometimes the Joint Office failed to pay providers on time. One had to take out a line of credit while waiting for a payment. Another had a $300,000 invoice delayed over questions about a $25 line item. The audit found that Joint Office staffers often changed performance standards when standards weren't met, leading to a, quote, inefficient and inequitable system. Plus, there was a lot of staff turnover, and the leadership changes at the Joint Office over the last 2 years created problems. Here's one of the graphs from the auditor's survey of homeless service providers. Almost half of them said the Joint Office was poor or very poor at coordinating between service providers. Auditor Jennifer McGuirk said the Joint Office groups that were focused on youth, adult, family, and other types of homelessness were siloed, often working alone with little communication and collaboration with the other groups. That needs to change.
Knowing kind of the challenges that homeless service providers have had, interacting with the Joint Office, getting paid by the Joint Office, is really important because we need providers to be able to be successful and provide the services that will help people get out of the cycle of homelessness that they might be in.
Another stat, 40% of homeless service providers told the auditor's office that the Joint Office does a poor or very poor job at providing a county-wide strategy for reducing homelessness. The main task they got to do. That shows a lack of clear direction, or at least communication among involved parties. Now, County Chair Jessica Vega-Peterson and county leaders responded to the audit. They agreed with most of these recommendations. On unspent tax money for homeless services, the county says it has a new plan to use the money for rent and employment assistance, shelter sites, and community organization grants. Vega-Peterson said, quote, "We are focused on both correcting past mistakes and moving forward with plans to reduce homelessness." The Joint Office has a new permanent director who says he wants to improve communication. And the county says 80% of its invoices were delivered within 10 days of acceptance. It wants to get that number to 100%. Here's the auditor on the county's response to her recommendations.
Management says they're going to take them on. And so the public can use that information to also help hold their government accountable and help us try to have a better system moving forward so that hopefully we can gain some traction on reducing homelessness in our area. The things we're pointing to are all just good management practices for having a functional system, and it should not be that difficult to achieve, frankly.
Ultimately, the auditor told me she expected the Joint Office to have better integrated systems since, well, it's been around since 2016.
Alrighty then, and here's my opinion on this. First, thank you to the auditors, Jennifer McGuirk, Nicole Deweese, and Mandy Hood, who dug into this mess and carefully picked out some of the dysfunction to hold it up to the rest of us and alert us. Second, after reading through the audit myself, I found myself shaking my head. I mean, the place is a mess. It feels like it's a ball of fishing line that's all hopelessly tangled. I wonder if it's time to just cut out the tangle and start over. I mean, if what we have now is success, seems like anything would be better. But it's an important office dealing with the biggest and most pressing problem that we have. They got to get this right. Right now, though, it's an agency with hundreds of millions of dollars that run through it, and it's dysfunctional. As Evan mentioned, the auditors found it has silos that keep information and cooperation away from other parts of the office, and it has awful communication on top of that. For example, those 5 different entry points for homeless folks to enter the system, each one has its own application process and assessment, and there's lousy coordination between all those systems. So some people may have to tell their stories over and over and over again as they try to enter the system. And on top of that, staff at the joint office either lied to the auditors looking for information or were so disorganized or incompetent, or maybe both, that they didn't realize they had the information that was being asked for. Here's what I mean. The auditors wrote that they wanted to verify a report called Newly Placed in Housing. It apparently had a number for the people the joint office got off the street and into housing. The auditors wanted to check the accuracy of that by getting the actual names of the people counted in that report. Seems pretty basic, but they were told by the joint office that those folks did not have the names and that the auditors should talk to the computer system administrator at the city of Portland, which actually had control of the homeless management information system. So they went there. And then the City of Portland administrator told them, no, we don't have the names, and sent the auditors back to the joint office. Next, the auditors asked the joint office for the data programming language that they used to create their report so the auditors could at least try to recreate it themselves and find the names that way. After they'd run their own report and done that and showed it to the joint office staff, according to the audit, then the joint homeless staff finally gave them the list of names they'd been asking for all along. The same list that the joint office staff said they did not have. Come on, what a runaround. And there's much more. As Evan pointed out, the auditors found that when a nonprofit service provider could not meet the goals they'd been assigned, well, the joint office staffers just kind of adjusted the performance metrics so the goals could be met. And in the midst of the dysfunction, or maybe because of it, there's been so much turnover at that place, that critically important agency, the revolving door is spinning at high speed. Check this out. The auditors reported that since 2019, 300 people were hired and 250 people left. Blue here shows the hires, yellow is people leaving. That's 50 people leaving a year, leaving a place with only 100 staff total. That's 50% turnover. In one door, out the other. It's no wonder the place is in chaos. But it's not just people coming and going. The systems are clearly not in place for the joint office to function properly. A lot of the work with the homelessness is done by these outside groups, service providers, that the joint office pays. It's worth repeating. 49% told the auditors that the joint office did a poor to very poor job of coordinating the service providers. 48% said the office's policies are simply hard to understand. But it appears the joint office folks are living in a bubble, since 48% of the staff, well, they think they're doing pretty well providing policies that are easy to understand. And 42% said they did not have a clear system goals from the joint office. These are the service providers again. But you know, I mean, how about just saying, let's end homelessness? And the list goes on and on and on. Look, the bottom line here, the complaints we've heard from the county commissioners like Sharon Myron, well, the audit backs them up. Myron said there was no plan to end homelessness. The audit shows, yeah, that's accurate. Sure, there are lots of programs, but no overarching plan, at least not one that providers were told that are there. In fact, the providers were told that there's a variety of plans that are structured around sources of money instead of that overarching plan. Come on, that needs to change right now. Taxpayers deserve to have an efficient, well-run system that spends their money wisely. The organizations helping in the effort deserve to get clear and consistent information and to get paid on time, which the auditors found is not happening. And the people living on our streets deserve community efforts that are more than Band-Aids. A focused and coordinated plan can help them move to a better life. A scattershot approach just brings more misery and wastes more money. It's time for the Joint Office of Homeless Services to live up to its name and get its act together. And if it can't do that, then it is time for the commissioners to shut them down and start over from scratch. We are all long past being patient on this issue. At least, that's my opinion. You don't have to agree, although I think you should, but you do have to communicate. Email your thoughts to me, will you? The address is thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. I look forward to hearing from you.